Good evening, everyone. Welcome to what's going to be an absolutely amazing, off-the-charts evening. And we're all glad that you're here. My name is Norm Prosslin. I'm the co-founder of the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame, which is actually, thank you, Victor, blood, sweat, and tears. We actually founded it 22 years ago at Stony Brook University, which is just down the block over there. And up until the time of the building opening, which was 2022, we're talking about many, many years of not having a physical home. And we did our best to really showcase the best of Long Island, past, present, and future, through a variety of inductions, scholarships, panels, workshops. We had a mobile bus. And then, of course, COVID came around, closed things down. And as it was kind of ending, we got a call from the wonderful people who actually operate this entire complex called the Ward Noble Heritage Organization. And they said, hey, you guys want to come into the building? I said, yeah, sounds good to us. So we opened, and actually, Ulysses, you were here for our press conference, I think in June, I don't know what you guys are, but in June of 2022. And we opened the building in the day after Thanksgiving, 2022. We had a first exhibit, which really, I think, kicked things off for us, the legendary venues of the 60s and 70s on Long Island. Let me introduce Kevin O'Callahan. He is our curator, artistic director. So everything you see is Kevin. We also want to thank on behalf of all the board members, our volunteers, our staff. This has really been a labor of love, and we're very excited, certainly, to be sharing this with you today. Just a couple of minutes to talk about some of the other things that we do here. The inductions really kind of make the biggest splash, but just last weekend, we gave out $10,000 in student scholarships for Long students to pursue their higher education. We have Educator of the Year Awards. We have an amazing connection with Teach Rock, which is Stevie Van Zant's national program. And we have a wonderful affiliation with Catholic Health. We have a wonderful health and music and art program called Health in Harmony. And over the next couple of weeks during the summer, we're doing some exciting things. At the end of July, we have a week-long band camp where we are bringing in young people to learn. We have some inductees coming to teach them, and they'll be giving a performance. And we are rolling out our first attempt at a music documentary film festival, which will be held in our theater August 8, 9, and 10. So if you're interested in any of that, please let the folks downstairs know. You can sign up and get on their mailing list. Now, I know some of you have not been to Long Island. People tell me 50 years you haven't been to Long Island. So who really hasn't been to Long Island recently? You better time yourself getting back on the Long Island Expressway. It's worse than you remember it. But anyway, so thank you for being here today. I do want to introduce Barry Fish, who's a member of our board of directors and is the general manager of our facility, and he will be your MC for the evening. So let's have a great time. Let's welcome Barry.
Thank you, Norm. We wouldn't be here without Norm and without Kevin. So thanks a lot. So this has been years in the making, and I'm glad we're finally able to do this. We're inducting the Hassels. The Hassels are Richard McKenna on guitars, John Dizek, vocals, harmonica, and tambourine, Howie Blauvelt, bass, Billy Joel, keyboards and vocals. Who's that guy? Harry Weber played the Hammond B3 through a Leslie cabinet, bass pedals and vocals. He was the keyboardist in the band before Billy joined. And Jon Small on drums. Let me tell you something about Jon. If you didn't already know, after the Hassels, Jon went on to redefine music visuals as one of the top video directors in the business. He has produced and directed world-class concert films and music videos that have shaped the visual language of modern music, including his music video for Walk This Way, the collaborative hit by LIMEHOF inductees Run DMC and Aerosmith. So he's not just another drummer. So, we want to show you first how it was back in the day. There's not too much film or video footage of the Hassels, but we do have 2 videos that were done in the late 60s, courtesy of Joe Lauro at Historic Films. Here are the Hassels as soon as I can work the computer. judging by the reaction, I think there's some Hassels family members who may not have ever seen that before. So we're glad to present it to you. So right now, let's bring up here that guy in the hat, Jon Small.
Hello, Long Island. So the first thing I want to say is I live on Long Island, not in. And a lot of you don't really realize, if you don't travel a lot, I've been lucky enough to travel the world many times. There's no place like Long Island. It might be a little redneck, but it's the charm. We have our own dialect. It's just a great place. Every time I get off the plane and say Iceland, I am happy to kiss the ground to be back home. It is the greatest. So the Hassels. I got a call from McKenna, the guitar player, and said, "Would you like to join a band?" I said, "Sure." So I said, "Where do you rehearse?" He goes, "How about in your house?" I said, "Okay, I got a basement." So a couple of days later, they showed up, and for the first time, I met Richie, I met John Dizek, and Harry Weber. Harry was the keyboard player, John was the singer, and we got together and we played probably for hours. And you know, when you're a musician back then, you know, you knew everything on the radio, so it was just easy. You just did it. It was just fun. And Harry, there's always somebody in the band that is the musical person that knows the chords, knows the harmonies to lay out, and Harry was that guy. He was a very accomplished musician, really good. But just like all bands, after a while you start to hate each other. And we hated each other, and it ended. So it was either me leaving or Harry leaving, and Harry decided to leave. So we had to search for a new keyboard player. Our manager at the time, Danny Mazur and Irwin Mazur, they owned a club called the My House. Yeah. And we were the house band in that club. It was a great club, and we were building a following. And Danny came up with this great idea. He said, "This is what we'll do. We'll put an ad in the paper that the My House is looking for a new house band. And all of Long Island bands will come in, and you just sit there and you'll steal the keyboard player you want." And that is exactly what we did. And band after band came in, and there was nobody we liked. And finally, Billy's band came in called the Lost Souls, and none of the guys in the Hassels, the remaining Hassels, liked Billy. Yeah, they thought he was too short. You'll see out there pictures of him on the first floor, you know, wore a beret, and he was just very kind of corny. Sang on one knee, but he had it. I saw it. You know, I came from a family of musicians, so I could see past the dust, and I knew he had it. So I asked him to come into to Danny's office, and I made him an offer to join the Hassels. He said, "I'm not leaving my brothers. I go to school with these guys." He goes, "I can't. How could I do it?" I knew I was losing the argument. What am I going to do? So all of a sudden it came to me, and I said, "So look, if you join the Hassels, I'll give you this brand new B3. He says, "Fuck those guys, I'm in." And that's what happened. He was in the Hassels the next day. Billy didn't drive a car, I think, until he was almost 40 years old. So I was his chauffeur all the time, drove him everywhere. We were like, the way I say it, we were pigs in a blanket. He was the pig, I was the blanket. And I took him everywhere, you know, wherever we went. We were always together. And eventually, you know, we played great places. We played with Traffic. We did little tours. We played all of Long Island, all of New Jersey, all of Connecticut, but we had a great time. It was great. We did have a #1 song with Every Step I Take on WLIR, so it was very exciting. In fact, I was driving on Long Island Expressway with Billy when we heard the record for the first time. And just like that movie, The Thing You Do, we just stopped the car right in the middle of the Long Island Expressway, jumped out, and we're running around the car, so excited, like idiots. But you have no idea what a great feeling it is to actually hear yourself on the radio. It's just fantastic, you know? Right. Billy's one caveat that he had was when he was joining the band, he said, "You got to take my friend Howie with you." So we took Howie Blauvelt. The Hassels were always a four-piece band, but with Howie it made five, meaning we'd make less money. But if this is what he wanted, and a bass would be a good thing, because Billy said, "Look, I can't play bass pedals," and Harry was able to play bass pedals with his feet. He was sensational. And we had, you know, we'd have Tiny Tim open for us. We played everywhere. We played in Manhattan. We used to play 7 sets a night, 45-minute sets a night, at a place called Ungano's in New York City on 70th Street. And we would be exhausted from playing. But we got to see some of the greatest bands and greatest people. I came from a family of musicians. My father was a professional trumpet player, and all my uncles were professional musicians. 2 of them played in Doc Severance's band, so I used to see him every night on TV. And my great uncle was Manny. He owned Manny's Music in Manhattan. So when I was 13, I got a job working there, and I used to be there, and I actually got to meet Ringo, because I built Ringo's drums for him and carried one drum over at a time to the Ed Sullivan Theater. It was great. And you know, the Hassels actually was supposed to open for the Beatles at Shea Stadium. Again, another great idea by Danny Mazur. He said, "So the Beatles are playing, why don't we just crash?" He said, so we got dressed up in our suits, because he bought us matching suits. We got into his black Cadillac, and we drove to Shea Stadium. We had a green Hassel bus that carried all our equipment. And we pulled into the parking lot, and as soon as we pulled past the crowd, Danny said, "Cover your faces," so we like this. And instantly the car was swamped with young girls jumping all over the car. So what happened was the police came around the car, cleared everybody away, and they ushered us right in to Shea Stadium. Our equipment was loaded into the building, and there we are. And now we're in a dressing room, which really was the Yankees' locker room. And we're down there, and also we hear commotion. We turn around, and there's Paul McCartney walking in, and the rest of the Beatles, one at a time. And they were as white as ghosts, like they never saw sun. And it was amazing, you know? And you know, at that time, the Beatles were so big, it was a phenomenon for everybody. But all I did was look over my shoulder and saw Paul, Ringo, and George, and it was like, and then somebody grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "You're out of here." And they said, "This is the Beatles dressing room," so they put us in another room. So how we got into this position was our manager told Sid Bernstein, who was the New York promoter, that Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager, said it was okay that we perform on the show. And then he told Brian Epstein that Sid Bernstein said it was okay. So he just bullshitted both of them until they finally were all together. And he said, "Who's these bands?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "You had them." "No, you had them." So they asked us to leave, but they let us stay and watch the show from the Yankees dugout. And so we did see it. We saw it. We didn't hear it because you couldn't hear. You can't even explain how loud the shrieks were. People just screaming. It was literally the most amazing thing that you could see. Okay. So Long Island has produced some of the greatest bands and people of all time. Every drummer here, if there is any drummers here besides the ones that are playing, grew up with our favorite was Dino Danelli. We just loved Dino. He had the look and he had the style that everybody just loved. And then you had guys like Mike Riccadella, who was unbelievable, Carmine from the Vanilla Fudge, who was just ridiculous. A quick Carmine story. So one day I'm in the Hamptons driving along, and on the marquee says, "Cactus, tonight only." And that was Carmine's band after Vanilla Fudge. So I went into the place, and we never had to pay. Everybody knew who you were. You just go in, and Cactus were just starting. And they were in their first song, and they were basically blowing the roof off the place as loud as could be. And also the power goes out. Power outage. Black. And Carmine goes into a drum solo. for 35, 40 minutes. And I'm watching this guy play and I'm shrinking. Because nobody can play like this guy. This guy's amazing. And I'm just watching, saying to myself, oh, maybe I should take up clarinet. Just great. Then the electricity comes back on, and they go right into the song where they left off playing. They play 5 minutes, and the power goes out again, and he goes into another 45-minute drum solo. And amazing, I mean, ridiculous. Never saw anything like that. The only other drummer that I love more than anybody is Liberty DeVitto. He left his signature on every Billy Joel record that he played on. I mean, those songs, you speak to any drummer, they just love what he did. He came up with signature performances that are unbelievable. I remember Phil Ramone, the producer, just saying, this guy's just unbelievable, how he just comes up with these stuff. He is a great, great player, all around good guy. Is that enough schmooze for you? So I guess you want to hear a little bit of that Attila, one of our little, that's not me. So, as I said, me and Billy were together all the time, and when we knew the Hassels would basically go over after our second record, and we would always just go to my parents' owned a wallpaper store. We'd go down in the basement and we'd play, and that's what we do every day. We play, hours and hours. You know, we'd stop for maybe a piece of pizza, but we'd play. You know, and one day we talked to Irwin, our manager at that time. And he said, I'll get you a record deal. And he got us a record deal at Epic Records. And he said, I got you guys a $50,000 advance. And we were in the elevator leaving, and we were jumping up and down going, $50,000! We were so excited to get it. And we went and we made the record in one day, including mixing it. Remember that? One day. That's why it sucked. So I can't begin to tell you how appreciative I am of this. Thank you, Barry, and all the people from the hall for being so nice and gracious. This has been amazing to me. It's just great, a great thrill, and I know for all the past members, they all feel the same way. It's just a great feeling to be able to be recognized after, I guess it's almost 60 years, right, Barry? Yeah. It's pretty good. Something like that. Yeah. So it's wild, you know? It's great. Well, thank you all, and I'm going to let Barry introduce the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, John. There's a whole bunch of dogs outside trying to get in. So let's go back to when it all started. You know, Irwin Mazur, as John mentioned, he was involved. He managed the band from the very beginning through to their final days. He was a central figure in shaping their path. He was there for every show, every rehearsal, and every pivotal moment. He's officially credited on the Hassels records. His role wasn't just behind the scenes. He was a key part of the team that helped build and guide the band during that entire era. He's come here tonight from the West Coast just for this event. Will you please welcome Irwin Mazur.
The fact I'm still alive to be it's a West Coast live now. I love Long Island. I haven't been here in 50 years. That's true. But when I was just looking through social media, and I happened to see this event coming up, and I talked to my son, and I said, "We got to go in for this," and called Barry and put. I mean this. This band is so near and dear to my heart. Yep. It's hard to express what they mean. You know, as one gets older, I was talking to John's wife about this. Your past people become more vivid to you. you appreciate. Sometimes you overlook it when you're young, and it isn't until you go back and you think about what those people and that time and that friendship really means. Just to put in a little plug, right now we're in pre-production for a major motion picture that is being directed by John Ottman, who directed Bohemian Rhapsody, won an Academy Award for that. And the movie's going to be called Billy and Me, and I'm not the actor, but it's my character, and it's about what the Hassels meant to Billy in his development, all the trials, tribulations, encouragement when Billy didn't believe in himself, and it really it's the emergence of his stardom at a festival in Puerto Rico called the Mater Soul Festival. If anybody remembers that, it was we had gotten on, you know. Oh, by the way, the Shea Stadium story. That wasn't my dad. That was me. That was bullshit. and the real part of that was that Brian Epstein said, "Are you guys after?" And at that time, I was a young, naive guy. I said, "Oh, we could do anything. You want soft rock, hard rock?" And he said, "If you go on, Beatles can't get paid." So that was the end of that. We wound up watching. You know, John, I'm very happy you remember that story, because I tell that story and people say to me, bullshit. But it's true. It's true. It's reconfirmed my memory. That's the great part. In any event, I just wanted to say that these were just some wonderful guys. A bunch of them aren't with us any longer, and I'm just proud that I could be part of that immersion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Irwin. So we have a few drummers here in the house to talk about how it was back in the rock clubs in the late 1960s. Please welcome someone who was a part of that scene, playing as a drummer in The Illusion. He's also a member of Barnaby Bye and a two-time inductee into the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. Please welcome Mike Riccadella.
Woof. Okay. Joke. Back in the day when we were playing The Illusion, Bill Graham called us 5 pimple-faced kids from Long Island. Nobody from Long Island was even recognized. And now I look around this whole room, and I look at all the great drummers, all the great bands, and I go, holy shit, what the fuck was he talking about? Look at these people, look at these musicians. The greatest in the world. Liberty DeVitto's here tonight. He's going to come up and play. I'm going to try and do my thing. But I just have to say, the Hassels, God bless you guys, and I'm so happy you're inducted. And let me say it a stupid way. I think you guys started the fire.
Thank you, Mike. Let's see if Norm is here. Yep, one more time, Norm Prusland.
Well, Mike said we have a number of drummers in the house tonight, and we do. And one that came down to Long Island in the late 60s, got together with a bunch of guys, started a band called Soft White Underbelly right here at Stony Brook, 1967, 1968. That band eventually became Blue Oyster Cult. So with us tonight is the founding and former drummer, the guy that played the cowbell. Welcome to the podium, Albert Bouchard.
Thank you, Norman. So, yeah, I have nothing prepared. Extemporaneous Al. So, anyway, I came here in the end of August in 1967. I was trying to make a start as a musician in Chicago, and it wasn't working for me. And my friend from Long Island, who's really from Merrick originally, but he was living in St. James at the time, he wrote me and said, I met this guy called Sandy Perlman, and he says he's going to make me a star. And and I'm, who's Sandy Perlman? And he goes, remember that terrible magazine that we read called Crawdaddy? And I said, yeah. He said, well, he wrote for them. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he's going to make you a star. Okay, I want to meet him. So I came to New York City well, I thought it was New York City, but it was really Long Island. I thought it was the same thing, I mean, I guess, I live in Queens now, so I live in New York City and Long Island. I've lived in Queens for a couple different times, and I lived in a lot of places on Long Island. I've lived in a lot of places since I came here. But anyway, my story is that when I got here in August, I didn't know where I was. I knew I was in St. James because it was explained to me that I was in St. James, and we drove to Stony Brook to meet Sandy Perlman, who was a former student, a graduate of Stony Brook, and I was very impressed with this guy. He seemed to be extremely smart. But he wasn't that full of himself. He was just kind of a regular guy who knew a little bit about everything in the world. And he had a way of talking about things that I felt was educational and interesting. And so while I was there, one night we had a band house in St. James. I can't remember exactly where it was, but somebody came in and said, hey, the Hassels are playing. And I thought they played in St. James, but I don't think there's any club in St. James. There was never a club in St. James. Maybe there was. Anyway, so I went to see the Hassels, and it was really the first band that I saw when I came, from upstate New York. And so I played in a band with my brother for in seventh and eighth grade, and then all through high school. And my brother Joe, my closest brother. I have a big family. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister. So anyway, but my closest brother, we had a band with my cousin, and we played all these shows, and so I had seen all the bands in upstate New York. This is Jefferson County, Watertown, New York, the Thousand Islands, and there was a lot of bands. There was all these little bands, including my little band, and everybody was a cover band, and there was nobody ever really stood out. Well, there was Ed Wool and the Nomads, who ended up getting a national record deal, but didn't do really anything. They call themselves Wool, but the only band that ever stood out was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. Okay, they weren't really from that area. They were from Cortland, but and Gary Driscoll was a good drummer. But I came and I saw the Hassels, and then a couple weeks later I saw the Illusion. I saw the Vagrants. I saw Vanilla Fudge. And I was like, holy crap, these drummers are amazing. You know, I hadn't seen, you know, I'd never seen a great drummer live. Well, the first one was on my senior trip. And that was Bernard Purdy with King Curtis and the Kingpins. And Bernard was amazing. He just, you know, I saw him just about a month ago for the first time in my life, and I ran over and shook his hand. But so he did this thing, okay, and they played Sam Cooke's Shake, and the it's an upbeat track. Boom, you know, shake, boom, 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 shake, boom, boom, boom. So it's a drum solo, right? But he's playing the drum solo with his left hand, and his right hand is he's twirling the sticks, and then he plays it with his right hand, and he's twirling the sticks with his left hand. Oh, that's magic! That's magic to me. I couldn't believe it. And then I saw Vanilla Fudge. And Carmine was doing the same thing, playing the solo with one hand and twirling the stick, and I'm like, oh my! And he's twirling the stick and playing at the same time. It's like, oh my God! So, yeah, I saw Long Island musicians and musicians in this greater metropolitan area in general were on a whole other level. And I said, I want to be on that level too. I have to say, I'm not talking really that much about the Hassels. They impressed me greatly. I thought they were a great band. And what really stuck out was their equipment. They had great equipment. Their sound was tremendous. They had a tremendous sound. They had all the best gear. And especially the keyboard player had a big console organ. I guess maybe it was a Hammond or a Lowry or something, but it had a Leslie speaker. Oh my God, and it sounded amazing, of course. And then we always wanted to have one. Then we got one, and it was like, oh my God, this thing is a hassle. So heavy. Anyway, I just want to congratulate all the guys in the Hassels, and for accomplishing this honor. It's really great, and I love this organization, Long Island Hall of Fame, and Stony Brook. This is a college town, and it's great. It's like there's a lot of brain power and a lot of talent right concentrated in this one area, and I think it's fantastic. So,
thank you, Albert. I just want to say something we had made up for this special evening, for this special occasion. If you haven't noticed yet, we have these t-shirts. Limited edition, very few of them. You can get them in our gift shop today. No, you don't want to see that. So a little plug, and of course the money goes right to the Hall of Fame. We have another inductee is here to say a few words. So please welcome an original member of the Brooklyn Bridge, Jimmy Rosica.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so grateful that I was asked to speak. As of this morning, I did not know I was even coming. So I too am going to be doing something extemporaneously. I grew up in Hicksville. My parents moved to Hicksville in 1952. And I guess when I was a senior in high school, maybe between 1964 and 65, I lived right off South Oyster Bay Road. If you hit my brother and I were playing wiffle ball in our backyard, if we hit the ball over the fence and it rolled across South Oyster Bay Road, it was in Plainview. Well, the Plainview shopping centers were built, and I guess around 1964, 65, there was a gym called Vic Tanny's in the Plainview shopping center that was taken over And it became the White Brick Inn. That was my first exposure to nightclubs. First time I got to see guys playing guitars and singing and what have you. And then the White Brick Inn became the Cat and Fiddle, and then it became the My House. Now, hearing the name Danny Mazur brought back very fond memories. I remember, or I have a recollection of Irwin Mazur one time getting up on stage at the, I guess it was the Cat and Fiddle at that time, and saying, we have a brand new group coming. Won't you please put your hands together for the Lovin' Spoonful? I remember them filing through the audience there, and John Sebastian had his auto harp, and I thought it was very, very cool. But let's go back to the Hassels. Around that time, say 66, 67, I want to say, you had groups like Vanilla Fudge making the scene, the Rascals, the Vagrants, who were already reasonably established. But after listening to the Hassels, I feel that they didn't really get their fair shake. I mean, they gave it a go, but the other groups charted a little higher on, as regards their success. But the Hassels certainly were an influence on most Long Island, any musician that grew up during that period of time had to have been influenced by them. I should have prepared some notes. Let me see if I jotted anything down.
Yeah.
That's the worst that could happen. No pun intended. Well, it's interesting how little pieces of your life kind of reconnect. For example, it turns out that my brother-in-law, after Danny Mazur left my house, my brother-in-law ended up investing in it. And I see names like the New Rock Workshop, and these are groups that my former wife always used to talk about. And I find out that Liberty and my former wife and sister-in-law are all bosom buddies, and people that I see in the audience are people that I've connected with over the last 60 years. As regards to the Hassels, though, I am so flattered and honored that I was asked to speak. They definitely deserve it as a Long Island band, and congratulations, fellows. Way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. We have another inductee who has a few words to say, even though he couldn't make it because he lives in France. But we have a short little video from Elliot Murphy.
French, hopefully not.
Bonjour. This is Elliot Murphy coming to you from Paris. Saying hello to everybody at the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. And I just want to say a few words about the Hassels, who certainly deserve to be in this wonderful institution with me and so many others. I first saw the Hassels in 1967, and their reputation had preceded them, so I took my car and drove out on the Long Island Expressway, got into an accident on the way between Garden City and Plainview, where my house was located, which was the club they played, and it was a snowy night. I remember getting in there weren't many people in the audience, and the Hassels came out, and they went into the best version of Give Me Some Lovin' I had ever heard, with, of course, Billy Joel on the Hammond B3, which was de rigueur. I mean, if you were a Long Island band, you had to have a Hammond B3. And Johnny Dizek was a very charismatic frontman, and the whole band was just, they were kind of crossing the edge more than some of the other bands of the Long Island scene. I was a big fan of the Vagrants and the Rich Kids and the Illusion. All those bands taught me what a rock and roll show should be like. But the Hassels, welcome to the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. You keep me humming.
And now, to induct the Hassels into the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame, Please welcome LIMEHOF inductees, former members of Billy Joel's band, and current members of the Lords of 52nd Street, Liberty DeVitto and Russell Javors.
If you would have told me when I was 15 years old that I'd be up here inducting the Hassels into the Long Island Hall of Fame, I mean, I was a regular at the My House. I grew up in Plainview. And if you were a kid in the 60s and you were into music, Long Island was the place to be. It was great bands, great musicians, unbelievable. At the My House, the two bands that I really focused on were, one was called the New Rock Workshop. It featured this amazing drummer named Liberty DeVitto. And there was and then there was another band. The reason we're here tonight is the Hassels. And the Hassels featured this young keyboard player with a great voice. His name escapes me, but anyway, the Hassels would come on stage with a ton of energy. They epitomized the Long Island sound. They were soulful, they were rocking, and you know, I said, that's what I want to be. I idolized these guys. They had a record deal. I said, oh my God. So when I used to go see the Hassels even before Billy joined the band. And I really loved that first version of the Hassels. You know, the lineup was Jon Small on the drums, John Dizek on vocals, Richie McKenna on guitar. And on the organ was a guy named Harry Weber, and I know John talked about him a little bit. And Harry played the foot pedals like Felix. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And Harry, you know, Harry was intense, but John to me was like the rock star. He had long hair, he wore trendy clothes. He was a guy, like I said, geez, I want to be like that guy. Harry had like kind of a Brian Jones type of vibe. He was intense. He looked a little dangerous, probably because he was a little dangerous. And but the guy could play. And a little later on, after Harry was no longer in the band, I bumped into him somewhere, and of course we were talking about music. And I think Harry had no idea that I was 15 or 16 years old, and I certainly had no idea that he was 7 years older than me, which is a big deal in those days, you know. But Harry could play, and you'd see him on the Hammond organ, and playing the foot pedals, and he'd be leaning back, and he was in like a world of his own. So I just wanted to say one thing before we do the rest of the induction, but to John Dizek, to Howie Blauvelt, and of course to Harry Weber, rest in peace, you're gone way too soon. And then to the rest of the guys, to Jon Small, and to Richie McKenna, and of course to Billy, my heartfelt congratulations.
I don't know if you noticed the pink piece of paper that comes up over here every now and then that says the Hassels and the New Rock Workshop at the My House at the same night. Watch for it. All right, I got a whole thing written down.
There it is. There it is.
That's it. That's it. Okay. When I was 16 years old, I was asked to join a band called the New Rock Workshop. The New Rock Workshop was one of the house bands on a Long Island club called the My House. This was during the psychedelic times, with Jimi Hendrix and the Mothers of Invention and bands like that. It was just a great place to hang out. It was safe for those underage kids. If you were 18 or under, this is where you went, you know, because you couldn't drink till you were 18 years old. The My House served non-alcoholic beverages. It was a fantastic place to hear great music. When I joined the New Rock Workshop, there was another band, the Hassels. The Hassels and the New Rock Workshop at times shared the stage together. I remember watching Jon Small, the drummer. He had a beautiful blue sparkle set of Ludwigs. The way he played, I couldn't take my eyes off him. He made use of everything with his arms, which was in arm's reach. He not only played on the drums, he played on the rims. He played on the ceiling of the My House that was very low. He used to bang on the rafters of the ceiling. Remember that? I remember. He was a show on himself. Of course, Little John Dizek, was a lead singer. He was amazing too. He would swing around a pole that was in the middle of the stage. I thought it was funny that Ronnie from the New Rock Workshop, the lead singer, did the same thing. Did John get the idea from Ronnie, or did Ronnie get the idea from John? Richard McKenna was a guitar player. His playing reminded me of Gene Cornish from the Rascals. Played up high, that whole thing, you know. Then there was Howie Blauvelt, super solid bass player, really, really good. Lastly, there was a guy on the organ. I didn't know who he was. Turned out to be, his name was Billy Joe, J-O-E, Billy Joe. I thought the Hassels were incredible. The New Rock Workshop and the Hassels did similar songs from similar artists. We did Sam and Dave's, Said I Wasn't Gonna Tell Nobody. The Hassels did Sam and Dave's, You Got Me Humming, and so on. One day, me and the New Rock Workshop had a meeting with an agent. He was promising us the world, this guy. He was in the city. At some point in the meeting, the guy holds up a 45 and he says, "This is Steve Winwood's new band, Traffic." He asked me if I wanted the record. And like any young kid discovering new music, I took it. I put it on the turntable at home and I loved what I was hearing. Side A was a song called Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, from the movie with the same name. But then, unknown to me, this became a life-changing moment. I flipped the record over, and on the other side was a song called Colored Rain. I loved it. The sound of the band was unbelievable to me, like something I had never heard before. Steve Winwood sang with such power, in such a high register, and his Hammond organ just screamed. I loved With Traffic Dead. I thought I was the only one on the planet that knew about this band. After all, I had the single. I didn't know anyone else that had it. Then one night, the New Rock Workshop finished our set, and I stood out in front of the stage to listen to the Hassels. On one song, they featured the player, Billy Joe. He sang, and the Hassels played Colored Rain. I went nuts. I thought, this guy, Billy, knows the song I thought I only knew. He sings it in a high register like Winwood and plays the organ like a maniac. I thought this guy is pretty good. This was my first real introduction to the guy that I would eventually be playing with for years later, for most of my musical career. That night changed my life. The Traffic album, Mr. Fantasy, with Colored Rain on it, was released December 1967, to be followed a few months later, in February of 1968, by the Hassels album, by the group's name, which included You Got Me Humming, which also was released as a single. Like every 17-year-old at the time, I had no money. But I did have a P code. There was a ShopRite supermarket in the town where I lived, in Seaford, Long Island. Amongst the produce and dairy aisle, there was a section where they sold records. I went in there one day, P code on, made sure nobody was looking, and I slipped Mr. Fantasy and the Hassels album under my P code. I walked out of the store a very happy guy. Yes, I stole the Hassels album. I think I owe you money, John. Yes. And this little section of this here is actually from Billy. I asked him if he wanted me to say anything. And he said, being in the Hassels gave me the opportunity to play the Hammond B3 organ, which is my favorite keyboard to play. Not for writing, but just for the pure pleasure of playing an instrument. Playing the Hammond led me to listen to great players like Jimmy Smith and Jim McGriff, which led me to listen to appreciate great jazz artists of the 20th century. The Hassels did that for Billy with the Hammond organ that John gave him. Who knew a few years later I would be playing with the guy who sang Colored Rain with the Hassels, and to have the honor of inducting them into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. Congratulations, guys. Now, a little footnote. I've known John for a long time. Do you know that me and John served dinner in a restaurant once, totally naked? Right, John? I went to see Jimi Hendrix once, and I was walking at the Singer Bowl, right? And I'm walking down the aisle, and I see John and Billy up on the stage. And I said, how the heck did you guys get up there? And John says, well, when we're talking to the American guys, the guys from New York, we talk in a normal accent. When we talk to the English guys, we talk in an English accent. They got to sit up there while Hendrix played, right? Sneaky bastard. So I love about these guys. But anyway, yes, they are being inducted tonight into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, which is a great honor. I have my brick, and I have that little music note that they give you. I don't know if they give a brick anymore. No more brick? No more brick. I got my brick. Anyway, you want to read this thing?
Sure.
And,
So let's do it. To accept the awards on behalf of the Hassels, we'd like to welcome to the podium Jon Small.
Yes, get everybody up.
Okay. Richard McKenna was unable to attend today, so please welcome his sister, Stacy Moscatello. Stacy, help us say accepting for the late John Dizek is his daughter, Jessica Wycheck. Yeah. Accepting for the late Howie Blauvelt is his brother, Larry Blauvelt. And accepting for the late Harry Weber is his great nephew, Henry Weber. So, our heartfelt congratulations to the Hassels.
So I also spoke to Billy today, this morning, and I asked him, is there anything you would like me to say? He goes, yeah, tell all the people there thank you very, very much. He goes, I'm from Long Island, I'm tough, I'll be back.
All right, photographers, this is it. Get everybody in.
Get in there.
drinks for everybody. Hassles are paying. That one's all right.